All right, and here we are. So yeah, we just set up a method. So we just set up the method for the object level, which had a reminder. And we can also do a little bit of fancy stuff, such as we can just simply just put in which type of plant or the order that the plant is for. So we can just do refund policy for self dot name and applies for this many days, right? Um, so that's there. Let's go ahead and add in another method before we move on to the next part of the class. Um, so in here we have total value. Now, and in this total value can simply just be, I'm just going to go ahead and call it total. Do I now make it? Yeah, sorry. So this is going to be price multiplied by self.quantity, and we can simply just return total. Great. And let's just print that out before we move on. Perfect, because we have 10 of 10, 10 of $10 worth of plants, so we have $100 for as total quantity. And we can of course customize it to have it printed with the string and stuff. Now, so having created the constructor, and sorry, so now coming back from creating a constructor as well as a class level attribute, class attribute. And as well as just methods that could be used by in instances. Now what we can do is what I have been so now that we have the basic option like way for an object to be created. Now what if there's another way of creating the object itself, right? Now what if like instead of just receiving these or just through this hard like instead of only creating an object like through this way, which is either through like a GUI interface, but what if we want to expand that? Let's say we have the ability to create from like a GUI like a storefront POS, or we also have like deliveries that are coming in form of like CSV files. Like how do we add that on? So with that one, what I learned was that a class method is essentially a way of creating um, the object from alternate like in different ways in alternative ways. So therefore, this class method really could represent creating alternative constructors, right? The initial constructor is our init class, but if we want to have alternative constructors, then what we can do is we can use class method. The other side of it being static method, just briefly going over the README file, I learned that these static methods are more for like utility and maintenance functions. So I'm not gonna, maybe in this video, I'm not gonna be covering those as much. So coming back to our point in our build process, I'm gonna go ahead and add in one more feature, constructor via class methods. And the other one is going to be, it could be like the magic methods just to kind of give this object some capabilities as well as operating abilities like add, multiply, etc. In our case, we're only going to just do the representation, and then we'll cover that. So let's go ahead and actually let's do the magic methods first because the alternative constructor is going to take a little bit more explanation. So in here, the REPR class magic method is just one of the methods that comes in that can be used within for an object in order to customize its representation. I know I just used the definition, like the word in its definition, but this is what I mean. Right now, when I do call the object order one, which is created using name, this price, and this quantity with its default order date, it represents something like this. Fairly not as user friendly, but what if we wanted to change that outlook by like forever? in this case, we could call on this magic method, and then we can customize it to however we like it. So what this will return is going to essentially be, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is return a formatted string, which is going to look like which is going to look similar to this form, which is like the object initialization, where you have the class listed and as well as the different attributes values that you're passing in, or arguments. So let's go and get started. In our scenario here, I'm just going to hard code the class name itself, but we could use different existing magic methods, but I won't cover that right now. So let's go ahead and call it item. And just to imitate this, we're just going to do, for the first one, we're going to give it its own quotation marks, and then the price itself, and then just that. And within here, we're going to, because we're using formatted strings, we're going to use its curly braces to be able to dynamically insert information from our object attributes. So in here, it could just be perfect. It's weird that this one is currently, something feels off about this. That's it. Okay. Oh, sorry. That's what's wrong. So it's just kind of using that first set of apostrophe. It was just mixing it up and cutting off the quotation earlier, or the string earlier. Then we have the name, we have the price, and we also have the quantity. Great. Now, if I was to call on the same thing, what I do expect to see is something like this. Ta-da. All right. So that's the first magic method. We could also give a capability such as like adding things. I haven't really wrapped my head around in terms of the business context, like how does that benefit it. I could definitely toss it in and like have two items add each other just based on the price or the quantity, but I don't want to flood it in without a purpose. I don't want to add it in without a purpose. So that's done. Moving on to the fourth one, which is the alternative constructor. I'm going to put it right underneath the init just because it's more, it just makes sense right now to me to put it right below the major, like the primary constructor. So here we have, like I said, alternative constructor. This could look like in a business context, orders coming in through various forms. Delivery people are different, two different sources are different, so they're sending it either through a JSON and the other one's sending it through a CSV or etc. So for now, we're just going to call it CSV. Now, I definitely want to code this in just to see what just to show what I'm talking about. Yeah, so we have the class method over here, and I see this is the mistake that I just made. Instead of self, it's supposed to be CLS. Because it's a class method, we're going to be passing in the class itself, not the object, right? So that's why we're calling it CLS instead of self, just to keep the conventions based on, just to prevent confusion from what I understood so far. So in this case, I do have a CSV setup, which is just acting like an invoice where we received orders from a local nursery and they just sent it as CSV. So we're going to take that information, just directly put it into our inventory system. And I'll also show how I'm storing it currently, like all the items that are listed. I mean, created. How do we know what has been created and when did they come in? I'll show all that just in a bit. So in here, we have the same types of fields. Now, because it's an alternative constructor, technically we can create the object using other types of attributes, right? Yeah, I wonder if because in here we are like in the primary constructor, we have these 4 values. In this case, we're also happen to be showing 3 of them because the 4th of it is just by default. But I guess that's another thing to explore for another time. So for me to read from a CSV, I'm going to go ahead and import the module CSV, and we're going to get started on that. So I'm going to go ahead and, so the way it would be business context, the business context is basically we just get a CSV file every time a delivery shipment happens. So with that, we're going to go ahead and open that file, and we're going to read it. We're going to read it. We're going to read the Excel file, the CSV file, into a dictionary, then into a list, and then we're going to iterate through that. And as we're iterating through each item, we're going to create items. Okay, sorry, objects. So yeah, invoice one.csv. And I could do R, but by default it is read. My understanding, it defaults to read, right? Which means I'm just reading open for reading. So I'm not going to add that in, and I'm opening it as file. In here it's because I'm going to be now taking that CSV file and reading into a list of dictionaries. I'm just going to call it list of dictionary. An easier way to I'm being a little bit lazy with it, but yeah, I'm just trying to fit all this in just to really test my stuff up and not test myself and not get caught up in the minor details, which I will be worrying about later on. Sorry about that. Terminal execution. We did not mean that. So in this case, now we have our list, which is just going to have each row or each record as stored as a dictionary with each of its columns, and that's stored in here. Now, if you want to iterate through that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and call for item in list thing, right? And in here, technically, I could be doing. I just want to see what the items look like. So just to show that, could do order one dot from CSV, and just to kind of get a glimpse of it, here we are. So this, so we can see that each element in the list is a dictionary created by the key value pairs, keys being the column values from the CSV. Going back to our example, just to finish this off, instead of just printing it, and in our case, we're going to go ahead and actually create these items. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it to a variable. And in here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to refer to the class by using CLS. Again, because we are receiving this class as an argument. So we're going to go ahead and do CLS. I'm going to test it out just to see if I can just, instead of CLS, what if I just do item, right? Then what we just have left over with is, I guess it should make sense, but I guess but I definitely want to test this out. So name, and here we have name, and because we have it stored in a dictionary, we can easily do for each item, right? Because the item itself is now a dictionary that is being represented. We are iterating through the list, but each element is a dictionary. So therefore, we can use the dictionary method called get, and from that we can match it up with the correct column. And of course, don't forget the comma, because we are still creating like an object, which has to fall in line with this format, the commas after each attribute or argument. Yeah. Yes, item.get. Nice. Great. Now, what we can do is, just for the time being, let me go ahead and I could technically print it out and just show, just to see how it looks. So what we do is we create each of the items and we show it, and because now we are showing the item representation, the object representation, which should have been in that angle bracket main underscore some code language. We are simply just using, because we have this matching method defined, we're benefiting from that and seeing it in this more readable form. We have the name of the product, the price, and the quantity of it. So that is that. The other thing we can do